In the quiet, peaceful village of Akwa, nestled between rolling hills and surrounded by thick forest, lived three sisters who were known far and wide for their beauty. Their names were Kaya, Akwa, and Lila, and the people of Akwa would say that they were as radiant as the morning sun. But behind their enchanting appearances lay hearts of stone, filled with arrogance, pride, and disdain for the traditions and elders of the village. Akwa was a place of harmony, where the community thrived under the guidance of the elders, who upheld the customs of their ancestors. It was a village where respect for the aged was the highest virtue, for the elders carried the wisdom of generations past. But the three sisters, untouched by hardship and spoiled by their good fortune, had no regard for these traditions. Kaya, the eldest of the three, was the most insolent. With a sharp tongue and a sneer always at the ready, she led her younger sisters astray. "Why should we listen to these old fools?" she would say, laughing as the other two joined in. "They are stuck in their ways, while we are young and free. Let them lecture someone who cares." Akwa, the middle sister, was quick to follow Kaya's lead. She found amusement in mocking the elders and anyone who dared to correct her. "Old age has made them slow and boring," Akwa would declare. "What can they possibly teach us that we don't already know?" Lila, the youngest, was not as bold as her sisters, but she followed them nonetheless. Deep down, she sometimes felt uneasy about the way they treated the elders, but she never spoke up. She was too afraid of being left out, and she didn't want to lose her sister's approval. As the years passed, word of the sisters' beauty spread beyond the borders of Akwa. Suitors from neighboring villages came in search of their hands in marriage, but none could endure the sisters' rude and prideful behavior. The young men who arrived with hopes of starting families soon left disheartened, for the sisters had no interest in anyone who was not as arrogant and foolish as themselves. "We don't need husbands," Kaya would scoff, especially not those dull, simple men from the neighboring villages. One by one, the suitors were driven away. Some were insulted, others mocked, and a few even fled in humiliation after being the target of one of Akwa's cruel jokes. Lila, though quieter, never objected to her sister's actions, and in time, the village grew tired of their behavior. The elders, wise and patient, had tried many times to reason with the sisters. They warned them that beauty would fade and that they would one day regret their arrogance. But the sisters only laughed. "You are jealous of us because you are old and forgotten," Kaya would say. "We are young and have the world at our feet." Akwa would add, "What use is your wisdom if it cannot bring you beauty or youth?" And Lila, though she said little, always stood by, nodding in agreement with her sisters. One year, the village prepared for its annual festival to honor the ancestors. The festival was the most important event in the village, a time when all the villagers gathered to pay their respects to those who had come before and to give thanks for the blessings of the land. The entire village was buzzing with excitement as preparations were made. Drums were carved, colorful cloths were woven, and baskets of food were gathered for the feast. The elders gathered the villagers and reminded them of the importance of this celebration and how it was a time of reflection and gratitude. But the three sisters, as usual, paid no mind to the solemnity of the occasion. Instead of preparing for the festival like the rest of the village, they spent their days laughing and making fun of those who worked hard to ensure the event was successful. "The elders act like the ancestors care about their little feast," Akwa said one evening, as the three sisters lounged outside their hut. Kaya smirked. "Exactly. And why should we waste our time honoring the dead when we have our whole lives ahead of us?" Lila, sitting quietly beside her sisters, glanced at the village square, where the elders were deep in preparation. A small voice inside her urged her to caution, but as always, she pushed it aside. She didn't want to be the odd one out. The night of the festival arrived, and the village was aglow with flickering fires and the sound of drums echoing through the air. The villagers, dressed in their finest clothes, gathered in the square, where a great feast had been laid out before the elders. Offerings were made to the ancestors, and prayers were spoken to ask for protection and guidance. As the elders began their solemn ceremony, the three sisters stood off to the side, whispering and giggling amongst themselves. "Look at them," Kaya said with a sneer. "Groveling before the spirits of the dead. What a waste of time." Akwa, always eager to follow her sister's lead, nodded. "We should teach them a lesson. Let's show them how foolish they look." Without a second thought, the sisters devised a plan to disrupt the ceremony. They crept to the center of the square, where the sacred offering had been placed, a beautifully woven basket of the finest yams, fruits, and herbs from the village. With sly grins, the sisters overturned the basket, scattering the offerings across the ground. Gasps echoed through the crowd, and the drums fell silent. The elders looked on in shock and horror as the sisters stood before them, laughing at the mess they had made. "See, your precious offerings mean nothing," Kaya shouted. "The ancestors do not care about your silly traditions." The village was plunged into chaos. The once joyous celebration was now filled with anger and confusion. The elders, normally calm and composed, were shaken by the sisters' blatant disrespect. A heavy silence fell over the crowd as the eldest of the village elders, a man named Nana Kwame, stepped forward. Nana Kwame was a man of few words, but when he spoke, the village listened. His voice, though frail with age, carried the weight of generations. He looked at the three sisters, disappointment etched deep into his wrinkled face. "You have insulted not only the living but the dead as well," Nana Kwame said, his voice firm. "You have shown no respect for your ancestors, for your elders, or for this village. Your beauty is a gift from the ancestors, but you have used it only for arrogance and pride. The time has come for you to face the consequences of your actions." The sisters, still laughing, were unfazed by the elders' words. "What can you do to us?" Kaya taunted. "You are old, and we are young. You cannot touch us." But the village elders had reached their limit. In a rare show of unity, they decreed that the three sisters would be banished from Akwa, never to return. Their insolence had brought shame upon the village, and their presence was no longer welcome. Kaya, Akwa, and Lila were driven out of the village with nothing but the clothes on their backs. At that moment, fear flickered in their hearts as they glanced back at the village, and for the first time, they felt alone. Don't forget to subscribe, like and turn on your notification button.